everyone, I'm Mims, and welcome to the channel. Thanks for being here. So I'm making another video out on the patio because it's cooler out here than in the house, but there's going to be a little background noise. You can hear the cicadas. I'm not too far from the train tracks. There was a train that just passed. Hopefully that will be done for a little while, but you definitely can hear the cicadas. But I'll take cicadas in late summer. That's actually a sound I quite love. So today's video is going to be all about what I guess I'm calling a seasonal reading project, for lack of a better phrase. I recorded a video in the summer, like at the beginning of May, no, the end of May, the beginning of the summer. And I talked about wanting to try this out. I have used tarot in the past, and actually pretty much all the way through the time that I've used tarot. I've definitely used tarot for reading for fictional characters in books and also in movies and TV shows. At the beginning, it was a suggested way of practice in a couple of the books that I first read, like learning tarot, and then I just kept up with it. It's always just been kind of a fun thing, and I often will have at least a deck if I'm going to watch a movie. Sometimes I just like flip through them, and then sometimes I will read for characters, etc. But it's just kind of always been part of my, I guess you could call it part of my practice. And I'm a big reader. I'm not saying well, yeah, I read a lot. And then I just made a video, which I will have posted recently, that was kind of like a wrap-up of the summer reading. And I wasn't sure. In fact, when I finished that video, I even said, like, I don't know if I'm going to keep doing this. I may do it, but I may just not make videos about it. And then I realized that I do kind of want to share. But what I realized is that I don't want to have a booktube channel. A big thing for me, reading is very personal. And that sounds silly, but I don't necessarily always care to do, like, you know, a video about a book or anything. And I will definitely make videos if I feel like I've read a book that's related to tarot and I feel like it's really good and useful, you know, or if I ever do a study. At the end of the study, I would share books and resources, like, most definitely, because I have found those helpful from other people, and so I definitely would like to, you know, return the favor. With that being said, I realized that it's kind of an interesting element, and having a little bit of time to think about my summer reading. I also read a lot of books that I'm just not going to even talk about because they're not tarot related and I didn't have a tarot deck with them. But I did kind of enjoy matching up books with decks and how it added a different element. And in fact, over the summer, I read a couple of nonfiction books. One was a memoir. That felt sort of obvious to me to read it with tarot. But I also read a couple of how-to books. And I was surprised that that also went well with tarot. So it turns out that tarot, and when I say tarot, it could also mean oracle or otherwise. So I have a big stack of books that I am that I've matched up with tarot decks. And I just thought I would go through them. And then what I'll do is probably sometime at the end of the winter. So this is my fall, I'm calling fall all of September, October, November, and even into December. I know that technically I'm not quite with the seasons, but I just thought this will be reading that I kind of finish out the year with. And these are all ones that are paired with decks. This doesn't include other reading that I might do on either tarot related books or just my own personal reading that I won't talk about. With that being said, I'm going to start with Jane Austen. I talked about it a little bit in my fall video, or my summer video, both the wrap up and the beginning. And it's Jane Austen's 250th, it's the 250th anniversary of her birthday. She'll be 250 in December. And she was born, now I forget, the 16th or the 9th of December. That might not even be right. I think it's the 16th. But anyway, I thought it would be fun to read all 12 books. We normally think of Jane, or at least I do, I kind of think of the 6. And when I made that other video, I couldn't think of Persuasion. But it's Persuasion, Mansfield Park, Northanger Abbey, Emma, Pride and Prejudice, and Sense and Sensibility. But I came across an article, and I'll put a link to it, that shows, and I have read a couple of these, but I hadn't read all of them. And I just thought it would be sort of fun to do and to kind of wrap up by her birthday, when she'll be 250 at the end of this year. So I'm going to read them in the order that they were written. And I'm going to actually reread Sense and Sensibility. And I'm going to use the Jane Austen Tarot. You probably have seen me talk about this deck before if you've watched any videos on my channel. This deck came out in 2024, and it's by, by Linda Falken, and it's published by, I don't even know, The Bookshop Limited. So this is, and I've been using this deck for reading Jane Austen, although I've only reread Sense and Sensibility. And for those who don't know, I tend to read Jane Austen, usually the main 6, probably every couple of years. Some of it's comfort reading, and some of it's just, because I've been doing it for so long, I feel like I get a little perspective each time. You know, a different character resonates. Sometimes it's about me being older, it's all sorts of things. Or just even the mood I'm in or the things that I'm going through. So anyway, these are the backs. It's a very flimsy deck, but I still quite enjoy it. And I'm looking forward to, Lo Scarabeo is going to put out their, either a reprint or a second edition, I'm not sure, of the Jane Austen Tarot that came out like in the mid-aughts. I think it came out in 2006 or 8. Anyway, I'm super excited about that. It will be supposed to come out in February of 26. But anyway, for now, I have this deck, and I quite enjoy it. And I like having a full, I also have the 53 card Jane Austen Tarot that's by Jackie Oakley. But I do enjoy having a full 78 card deck. And I think these illustrations, it's quite a lovely deck. It's just quite flimsy. And this is where I'm glad that I'm an overhand shuffler, because then it doesn't, you know, hurt the deck. So anyway, that's the deck itself. And then I'm going to read to you the order. I have a lot of my Jane Austen stuff packed away, but I know that I'll be able to get some of these like via the library. And so this is the order of the 12 books. And I'm going to reread them in this order, even though I did read Sense and Sensibility over the summer. But because I only read it, that's the only one I got to, I just thought this will be kind of a fun fall, and to read them in that order. So Love and Friendship, The Beautiful Cassandra, Leslie Castle, it's an unfinished one, Lady Susan, Sense and Sensibility, Pride and Prejudice, Mansfield Park, Emma, Persuasion, Northanger Abbey, The Watsons, and Sanditon. So I'm going to tackle those over the fall. And tackle it makes it sound like it's a chore. It's not. I quite enjoy it. And I thought, I like that, you know, and some of the unfinished ones, or the other 6, are fairly short. So it doesn't feel like that ambitious of a project to me. And again, I don't like to think of it as a project either, but I guess I keep saying that. So those are the Jane Austen books that I plan to read with the Jane Austen Tarot. Okay, next, these are in no particular order. It's just kind of how they're piled up on my thing. I've been interested in art history for a while. I never took an art history class in college or in high school. I took, for my fine arts class, I took jazz because John Coltrane lights me on fire in a good way. And so anyway, during the early pandemic, I think I saw an ad on Instagram, and there's an art historian called Christine Herdeberg. She's from Norway, and she wrote this book, and she offers a few online classes on art history, as well as like seasonal or holiday lectures. And I've gone to a couple of her lectures, well, they're online, and I quite enjoy her, so I finally bought her book. It's quite thin, but I still thought it was a nice kind of intro to art history. And I also found an art history class online that I might want to take for free at some point. But for now, I'm starting with things that are like achievable and doable. So I want to read this book, and then I'm going to pair it with this Piotnik art pack. This is actually a playing card deck, and I did a flip through of it when I restarted my channel back in May. And so one of the things that I really liked about this is that all of the paintings that are in this are shown on the cards, and it also shows where they are hung or where they're kept or displayed. So this is going to be a pretty, you know, Western European white art history, and these are the backs, but I'll show you a few of them. And I just thought that these would be kind of fun to look through while I'm reading that art history book. And again, I will put the link. So two things. If there are any decks that I have flip throughs of, I think this is the only one. Yeah. I will include a link of it below just so that you can see it, and then I will list all of the decks in the books in the order that I've shown them. And I will include a link to the article that showed the 12 books in order of Jane Austen. So I do read playing cards, and I might do some playing card reading with this deck. But for now, I also just thought it would be fun to just share or like look at the art while I'm reading that book. And I quite enjoy this little deck. One of the things that I love about it is that you've got the you know, the art prints, or the, you know, the print of the painting in the middle of the cards. So you can completely use them like a regular playing card deck, but you've got all these lovely paintings right in the middle, and it gives you the titles of them and the year and the artist. And then this little deck, or this little, I guess like a title card, tells you where the paintings are. You know, what collections or what museums. So that is the Piotnik art pack. 54 masterpieces of Western painting. And I just thought that that was kind of a neat little way to match up a little deck with a not very big book. This book it's just kind of a really brief overview of art history, but I thought that it was kind of nice to have it, and I love that it does have these big art prints inside it. So I was excited to get this book. I got it in the summer. Okay, next. This is just, yeah, we're gonna do those three next. This is a little bit of a kind of reading some of the stuff that's on my shelf. And so I've had this deck for a while. It's the Literary Witches. This deck came out in 2019, but it was based on a book that came out in 2017. and I finally found a used copy of it, and I got it, but I haven't read it yet. So some of this reading, these are not very, it's not a long book, in fact, but I do think it makes a more thorough guidebook than the one that's in here, although I think this is not a bad little guidebook, because it still gives you a great little summary of the author or the literary witch, and kind of a theme to her work and her identity, as well as sort of what she's sort of known for, and like just a little brief biological note. So I do think that this deck works well even if you don't have the book, and they were definitely sold separately. I don't know if I knew about the book. I think I got the book, I got the deck, I definitely got the deck first, but I don't know if I knew about the book right away, or it wasn't until reading it that I realized it. So, it's by Taisia Kitaskaya, illustrated by Katie Horn, and it's, you know, it's pretty short. This is put out by Clarkson Potter, and I don't think this is going to take very long to read, but it does have a total of 128 pages, and it does give you some recommended reading. So one of the many reasons why I chose this deck and this book to add to my collection was to broaden my reading horizons. And one of the things that I think a lot of people have said that they enjoy about the deck and the book is that there are some well-known writers, but there are also some not as well-known international writers, and I quite enjoy that. So you get a full page, and these are what the cards look like. I'll show you the cards in a minute. And there are, I think there's 30? Let's see if it says. Yeah, there's 30 writers in the book, and then the deck has 70 cards, and the deck is really kind of divided into two. You have, so these are the cards, those are the backs. So you have the actual witches, and I really enjoy like putting these out like on my table, and then even then like going to the library, and then, you know, if I'm gonna pick up one of those books to read. And then these are the literary tools, and so, or the witches' tools, and they're beautiful paintings. Like, you can almost frame those. And so what I have done right now, this is all jumbled together, but sometimes what I'll do is I'll split them, and I'll put all the witches and then the tools together, and I'll draw one of each. And then I use this deck a lot for my own kind of like creative writing, journaling, as well as to give me ideas of things to read. So one of the reasons that I thought it would be fun to read, to use this book this fall and this deck, is because I only recently added this book into my library, and I thought, why not learn a little bit more? So even though in some ways you could really call it like an extended guidebook, I'm gonna count that as a book, and I'm looking forward to reading it, and it feels like fall to me, so I'm looking forward to that. Okay, next, this is another book and a deck, and this is the same thing. I've had the deck for a while, but I just added the book in, and this is also published by Clarkson Potter. This is one of my favorite all-time decks. This is the Tarot of the Divine by Yoshi Yoshitani, and I know people have talked about this deck a lot. It's quite popular. It's mass market, and you have 78 deities, folklore, and fairy tales from around the world, matched up, I think, quite well with each of the cards. And this little guidebook, while it doesn't give you a ton of the story, you know, it focuses more on like the meaning of the card, but it does give you where, like what the, either what the fairy tale is or what the deity is, and then, and where it's from. So like the devil or death, White Bear King Valamon, it's a Norwegian for fairy tale. So it kind of gives you the geography and just, but it doesn't necessarily get too much into the story. But it's enough that you could then look it up if you have like a fairy tale anthology or some, you know, some books like that. So I was, though, quite excited, and in fact I had this deck for several years before I realized that it matched up with this book. I was in the bookstore and was like, oh, wait. And it's called Beneath the Moon. So I think they designed it, obviously, that if you love tarot, you could buy it separately. And if you don't, you could still buy the book. And I know some people probably like the Literary Witches, like, why don't they sell them together? Or why do you have to buy a separate book? I remember someone on TarotTube talking about that. Anyway, I didn't really care about that. I'm just super excited to get this. I also found this one as a used copy, and it looked brand new to me. There's maybe a couple of little dents, but the pages aren't marked or anything. And it's a beautiful book. And these are also done with just, you know, a beautiful illustration, full page, and then like one page. I think almost all of the stories, yeah, all of the stories are one page. So I am really looking forward to pairing this with Tarot of the Divine, and to, you know, get into a little bit more of those card meanings along with those stories. And that I'm looking forward to as well. I'm sure a lot of you have seen this one, but you never know. And yeah, they're reversed and otherwise. So that is Tarot of the Divine with Beneath the Moon, both by Yoshi Yoshitani, written and illustrated. So that's another one. Okay, now we've got a cricket. Okay, next, this is another one where I got these together, sort of. I had heard really good things about this book, Angel Prayers by Kyle Gray. This is published by Hay House. You may know Kyle Gray as the angel guy, or one of the angel guys. I think there's a few people that, and this book was written in 2013, and then looks like it was, the copy was renewed in 2018. So, this has a directory of angel prayers. So you have, the beginning is just kind of talking about prayers themselves, and then part 2 is a directory of angels and angelic beings, and it talks a little bit about the angelic hierarchy, and then it gets into the archangels and so forth. And then in the back there are some daily prayers and an A to Z directory of prayers. So for instance, like, there's a prayer for happiness or healing and health or divorce or waking up or in the shower, and guardian angel prayers and so forth. So I started using this. These are actually 2 decks, and I'll talk about them both. I've combined them into what he calls a mega deck. And I started first with the 22 Archangels Oracle. And this came in the Summer Deck Club Box 2024 from Hay House. And I remember when I got it, I wasn't even sure if I was gonna like it, but there were 22 cards in there, and I just worked with them day by day, because I thought, if I don't like it, I'll work with them. That's like 3 weeks. I kind of did it like a book. I just did the cards in order, and I realized that I really liked them. One of the other things that I also quite like about it, the art is by Jennifer Hawkyard. So despite these covers, you're not getting just a bunch of white people with wings. I'll put it that way. Because I've heard Kyle talk, I don't know him, Kyle Gray. I've heard him talk a bit. I've watched some of his videos when he'll talk about, he said, you know, angels appear to us, if you believe in that, angels appear to us in a way that we can make sense of them. And he has even talked about an angel that appeared to him that looked like a big 6-foot angel that looked like Barack Obama, which I kind of loved. You know, Kyle Gray's a white Scottish dude, and then I loved that an angel to him looked like Barack Obama. That sounded neat to me. So anyway, I had this deck for a while, and right now I'll show you the cards in a minute, but back in the spring during Hay House sale, I watched a couple of his videos, and there's several decks that you could combine. Of course you could do it however you want, right, if you're buying the decks. But I liked his idea, and so I got the Angel Guide. This is a deck of 44 cards, and these are not like specific beings, they're more about their qualities or their properties, I don't know. So like compassion, or healing energy, or signs and reminders, rather than like a specific being. But anyway, I combined the two of them, and I just put them in a little bag with both booklets. And so this is the mega deck. And what's kind of cool about them is they're the same, you know, they're all Hay House decks, and it's the same illustrator. It's Jennifer Hawkyard. And I quite like working with them. And I also like it because they're not denominational. You know, these are not necessarily like Christian or whatever kinds of angels. They're just angels. And I'm surprised. Like, I think even back in January, if you told me that I was going to be working with angel and archangel energy, I'm not sure that I would believe you. But I quite enjoy them, and I don't know. I find it kind of a soothing practice. And I've been doing some other work with like the biblical tarot and doing some shadow stuff with that and some study. So this feels to me a little more freeing, because I just like thinking about them as these helpful beings without getting into too much detail. So I am combining, since I got this book but I hadn't read it yet, I thought, what a good way. I already work with this mega deck. Anyway, I'm waving around a bag, but both of those decks are in there, and I thought it would be cool to read this book. So kind of matching up decks and then books that kind of extend. It's almost like an extended guidebook, or like a thicker guidebook in a way. Okay, next. It's fall, so I also thought a fun way to combine I like to read ghost stories in the fall, and I've been wanting to read this for a while. This is the Edgar Lee Masters Spoon River Anthology. I came across this book in another book, and apparently this anthology has all of these different little monologues, and apparently I've never taken a drama class, but apparently sometimes they're used in drama classes as like actor exercises. And so what it is the American poet Edgar Lee Masters, 1869 to 1950, created a series of compelling free verse monologues in which former citizens of a typical Midwestern town speak touchingly from the grave of the thwarted hopes and dreams of their lives. So in some ways they're ghosts, and it's not a very thick book, but I thought it would be kind of cool to read. And I came across this really cheap, I got it for like $1 at the used bookstore a couple years ago. So I wanted to read the Spoon River Anthology with a Halloween deck. So I picked the Happy Halloween Tarot by Sony Graves. This is the mass market edition. She had an independent one before, or they, I'm not sure if it's a she or a they. And then it was picked up by US Games in, I think, 2024. Yeah, 2024. And so I didn't talk about this, but I also wanted my decks and books to be decks that I was going to use for fall anyway. And so this sort of made sense. Like, of course, I was going to have this deck. And I just thought that this one, while not specifically, I just thought that it would work quite well with the Spoon River Anthology. And this is such a cute deck. But also, I also kind of like it because it's pretty. I'm so excited to have this. I didn't know about the independent one until it was already out of print. So I was super excited then when I found out that this came in a mass market edition. And so that's going to be another one to read and play. So the Happy Halloween Tarot by Sony Graves and the Spoon River Anthology by Edgar Lee Masters. Okay, last two. It's kind of a lot to read, but some of these are things that I think will help me in terms of, like, they extend the usefulness of the deck, for lack of a better phrase, and then some just feel like a cozy read. So that's kind of what that one is. So this was a deck that I got during my birthday splurge. It's the Goddess of Love Tarot. And it was kind of a surprise to me that I even bought it. I had seen quite a few people on TarotTube talk about it, and it's been out for a while. This is by Gabriella Hertzig and illustrated by Julia Popescu. Snakes for Hair. This came out in, I don't know. Does it say on the back? Let's see if it says in here. I think it's been out at least a couple years, maybe longer. Let's see if it says. 2023. So it's been out a couple years, at least. And I did not know until I decided to get this deck that I was, I'm definitely interested in, like, stories of goddesses, but I didn't know that I wanted to do some goddess or divine feminine work. And I'm not really going to get into that right now, but I found at the library bookstore, or the library book sale, I came across this one. This is a big chunk, and this came out, I don't know when this came out, 1991, so it's a bit old, but I still think I feel like goddess sorts of stuff don't really go out of date. So this is called The Myth of the Goddess, Evolution of an Image by Anne Baring and Jules Cashford. So this was published in 1991, and it's a big chunky book. But this is like the goddess book or the goddess deck that I have. And so while this is very specifically, you know, getting into like divine love and the divine erotic, I just thought that this would be kind of a good entry point and a good accompaniment I definitely would like to read a couple of her books as well, but for now, I'm excited about this one. And so this gets into the Paleolithic Mother Goddess, and then it gets into the Great Goddess, the Neolithic era, and Crete, and the Bronze Age, and Isis, and Babylon, and Greece. And I'm just kind of excited to get into this. It's obviously going to be, it's kind of a scholarly book, but I think it will be interesting to read. And so I was excited to have a deck to go with it. So that is the Goddess of Love Tarot with the Myth of the Goddess. Okay, I have one last deck, and I don't yet have a book for it. But I've had this Frida Kahlo tarot for a while, and I love Frida Kahlo. I know that's not unique. This deck is published by Fournier, and it came out in 2019. It was in the celebration of her 110th anniversary. She was born in 1907 in July. I think her birthday is July the 6th. I used to know off the top of my head. I don't know what it is about me today not knowing birthdays that I kind of know. Anyway, I want to find a biography of Frida Kahlo, and I thought that it would be a good excuse to play with this deck. This is very much a pip deck, and I definitely would love a broader deck at some point that has like more of her paintings. It's very much a pip deck, but I'll take any Frida that's available. And I do like, because I feel like so many people have tried to make money off of Frida, like I know her, but yeah, there's a train, it's going by pretty soon. I can hear it starting to come. So this is by Fournier, but it was also published with the partnership of the Frida Kahlo Corporation. So even though you're just getting these little tiny cards, I just think it's beautiful. And while I don't have a deck yet, oh good, it's just the railroad car going by. And while I don't have a book yet to go with it, I'll either find one at the library or I'll buy a Frida biography. And so I'm excited to pair it up with her because I know bits and pieces of her story, but I definitely would love to find a good biography that maybe also combines with some images of her paintings. And so that's definitely going to be part of it. So that is what I am gonna call the fall deck in a book. And I'm excited about it. I think it'll be a lot of fun. Some of this feels like cozy reading. I also love that it's extending books or decks that I already have and books that I already have and so forth, with the exception of getting a book, biography of Frida Kahlo. So there we go. I will also link to my summary of my summer book wrap-up or deck in a book wrap-up, and like I said, I'll include all of the links, or the not links, but specifically the decks in the books as I talked about them, and the link to the article if you're interested in the 12 books of Jane Austen. I think that's it. So thanks for being here. I hope you're well. I hope you're taking care of yourself. I hope you're finding joy. I hope you're finding ways to take care of others. I hope you're finding good books to read and having fun with the decks that you have, and that you're taking care of the earth and others in a mutual aid way. And I hope to see you in the next video. Take care.